Ever wonder why sometimes your boiled food turns out too mushy or too tough? It's a common conundrum in the kitchen, isn't it? Overcooking can turn your veggies into a squishy mess, while undercooking leaves them tough and unappetizing. And then there's the ever-present challenge of infusing just the right amount of flavor. It can seem like a mystery, a riddle wrapped in an enigma, but don't worry. Well, stay tuned, because today we unravel the mystery behind perfect boiling techniques. First, we need to understand what boiling really is. So let's dive right in. Boiling is a process where heat is applied to a liquid, causing it to reach a temperature where it starts to vaporize into gas. This is typically at 100 degrees Celsius for water at sea level. But remember, altitude can affect this boiling point. When you're boiling food, the heat from the boiling water is transferred to the food, cooking it from the outside in. The bubbles you see are actually the water turning into steam. These bubbles help to stir the food and ensure even cooking. But here's the fun part. Boiling also helps to break down the tough fibers in foods, making them more tender and easier to digest. Plus, it's a great way to extract flavors from ingredients like herbs and spices. Now that we know what boiling is, let's discuss how to do it correctly. Choosing the right equipment is crucial in boiling. You might be wondering why. Well, the answer is simple. The right equipment sets the tone for the entire boiling process and can significantly impact the outcome. Let's start with the pot. The size of the pot plays a pivotal role in the boiling process. If the pot is too small, the water may not cover the food completely, resulting in uneven cooking. On the other hand, if the pot is too large, it may take longer for the water to reach the boiling point, wasting energy and time. So, always choose a pot that's just the right size for the amount of food you're cooking. The material of the pot also matters. Certain materials like copper and stainless steel conduct heat more efficiently than others. A pot made from these materials will help the water reach boiling point faster and maintain a consistent temperature throughout the cooking process. On the contrary, pots made from materials like glass or ceramic, which are poor conductors of heat, may take longer to heat up and can cause fluctuations in temperature. Now let's talk about the lid. You might think it's just a cover, but it's so much more than that. A lid traps the steam, creating a pressurized environment inside the pot. This speeds up the boiling process by raising the temperature inside the pot above the boiling point of water. Moreover, a lid prevents the water from evaporating too quickly, maintaining the water level in the pot and ensuring that your food gets cooked evenly. So, when you're ready to start boiling, make sure you have the right equipment on hand. Choose a pot that's the right size and made from a material that conducts heat efficiently. Don't forget the lid. It's not just a cover, but an essential tool in the boiling process. Remember, the right equipment sets the foundation for perfect boiling. So, the next time you're in the kitchen, don't underestimate the power of the right pot and lid. They can make a world of difference in your cooking journey. Scene script. Water is the key player in boiling, but there's more to it than just filling a pot. Let's start with temperature. Cold water, hot water? It depends on what you're cooking. For vegetables and pasta, hot water is your best bet. It reduces cooking time, preserving flavor and nutrients. But for meat, you'll want to start with cold water. It allows for a gradual heat increase, which helps draw out flavor and keeps the meat tender. Now let's talk quantities. You might be tempted to fill the pot to the brim to get things boiling faster. But hold on. Doing so can lead to a longer waiting period for the water to reach boiling point, and it can also cause the water to spill over. Instead, fill the pot about 2/3 full. This provides enough room for the food to move around, ensuring even cooking. Next up, the art of salting. Adding salt to water enhances the flavor of whatever you're cooking. But timing is crucial here. Add salt at the beginning and you risk pitting your pot. Add it when the water is boiling and it might splash back at you. The golden rule is to wait until the water is hot but not yet boiling before adding your salt. And remember, too much salt can overpower the natural flavors of your food, so use sparingly. As a rule of thumb, a teaspoon of salt for every 4 cups of water should do the trick for most recipes. Lastly, consider the food you're boiling. Dense foods like potatoes need more water to ensure even cooking, while delicate foods like eggs require less. So, whether it's getting the temperature right, gauging the right amount of water, knowing when to salt, or understanding how different foods interact with water, these factors all have a significant impact on the outcome of your boiling process. Just like in life, balance is key when it comes to water and boiling. Timing is everything when it comes to boiling. It's not just about cranking up the heat and waiting for bubbles. It's about gauging the right moment to introduce your ingredients to the water, monitoring their progress, and knowing exactly when they've reached their delicious peak. First, let's talk about how to know when your water is boiling. It might seem straightforward, but there's more to it than meets the eye. You see, when water starts to boil, you'll notice tiny bubbles forming at the bottom of the pot. This is called a simmer. True boiling, however, is when those bubbles become vigorous and rise throughout the entire pot. That's your cue to add your ingredients. Now, how long should different types of food be boiled? That's a great question. The boiling time can vary greatly depending on the type of food and its size. For example, small vegetables like peas or corn kernels might only need a minute or two, while larger root vegetables such as potatoes or beets could take up to 20 minutes. Meats and poultry, on the other hand, require longer boiling times, anywhere from 20 minutes to over an hour, depending on the cut and size. So, how can you tell when your food is done boiling? Well, that's a bit of an art. For vegetables, look for a vibrant color and a texture that's tender but not mushy. Meats should be thoroughly cooked through, no longer pink in the center and easy to pull apart with a fork. Pasta should be al dente, meaning it's cooked so as to be still firm when bitten. Remember, every kitchen and every stove is different, so these times are guidelines, not rules set in stone. The best way to perfect your boiling technique is to practice, observe, and adjust as necessary. With practice, you'll be able to master the art of timing. You'll know instinctively when your water is perfectly boiling, how long your food needs to cook, and when it's reached that perfect level of doneness. And that, dear listeners, is the beauty of boiling. Before we throw our food into the pot, there's some preparation required. Now, let's talk about food preparation for boiling. This isn't just about making your food taste great, it's about ensuring that your food cooks evenly, and that you're getting the most out of your ingredients. For most vegetables, your first step will be a good wash. This is particularly important for root vegetables like potatoes and carrots, which can come with a bit of dirt still clinging to them. A quick rinse under cold water should do the trick. Next up, peeling. Now, this one is often a matter of personal preference. Some people like to peel their potatoes, while others prefer to leave the skin on for that extra bit of texture. The important thing is to make sure you're consistent. If you're cooking a dish with mixed vegetables, try to ensure they're all either peeled or unpeeled. For certain foods like onions or garlic, peeling is more than just a preference, it's a necessity. You'll need to remove that outer layer before you can proceed to the next step, cutting. Cutting your food into uniform pieces is key to ensuring it cooks evenly. No one wants a pot of undercooked potatoes mixed in with overcooked ones. So whether you're dicing, slicing, or chopping, make sure your pieces are about the same size. It's also important to remember that some foods, like beans or pasta, don't need any cutting at all. They just need to be properly washed or rinsed before they're ready for the pot. Finally, for meat, you'll want to trim any excess fat, and if necessary, cut it into smaller pieces. This not only helps it cook more evenly, but it can also make your meal healthier. Remember, the goal of food preparation is to set yourself up for success. It's about making sure that when your food hits the boiling water, it's ready to cook perfectly. So take your time, be thorough, and enjoy the process. Because when you're cooking, every step is an opportunity to infuse your food with love and care. Proper preparation is half the battle won. Boiling can be dangerous if not done carefully. It's a fact we can't ignore, even though boiling is one of the most basic cooking techniques. Let's start with handling hot pots. It's crucial to always use oven mitts or pot holders when moving a pot of boiling water. The handles can get just as hot as the pot itself, and we don't want any burns, do we? It's also a good idea to turn pot handles inward, away from the edge of the stove. This helps prevent accidental knockovers, saving you from potential burns and a big mess to clean up. Next, let's talk about avoiding overflows. Have you ever left a pot on the stove only to come back and find it spewing water all over your cooktop? That's what we're trying to avoid. Be sure to only fill your pot 2/3 of the way full. This leaves room for the water to bubble and roll without overflowing. And remember, keep a close eye on your pot. Boiling water can go from a simmer to a rolling boil pretty quickly. Now onto a very important point, keeping children and pets away from the stove. The kitchen can be a fascinating place for little ones, filled with interesting smells and sights. but it's not a playground. Always make sure that children and pets are at a safe distance when you're boiling water. It's so easy for a small child or a pet to accidentally knock over a pot, causing a dangerous situation. And finally, in case of any mishaps, it's essential to know basic first aid for burns. Run cool, not cold. Water over the burn for about 20 minutes. Don't use ice or icy water as it can cause further damage, and if the burn is serious, seek medical attention immediately. In cooking, as in life, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Remember these safety tips and you'll be able to navigate the kitchen like a pro, without any unnecessary mishaps. Safety should always be your top priority in the kitchen, so be mindful, be aware, and most importantly, be safe. We all make mistakes, but in cooking, some are more common than others. Let's start with one that might surprise you. It's not about the food or the pot, it's about the stove. Many of us crank the heat up to high and leave it there, thinking it'll get the job done faster. In reality, this can lead to uneven heating and possible scorching. The real trick is to bring your pot to a boil and then lower the heat to a simmer. This ensures a constant, gentle boil that cooks your food evenly without the risk of burning. Next up, we have the overcrowded pot. It can be tempting to stuff as much as you can into the pot to save time, but this is a recipe for disaster. Overcrowding can lead to uneven cooking and can even cause the water to cool down, effectively stopping the boiling process. To avoid this, make sure there's enough space for the water to circulate around your ingredients. Then there's the issue of timing. Boiling isn't a set it and forget it method. Different foods require different boiling times. Vegetables might take a few minutes, while tougher foods like beans or certain cuts of meat can take hours. Keep a close eye on your pot and adjust the cooking time as needed. Another common mistake is adding salt too early. While it's true that salt can raise the boiling point of water slightly, adding it at the start can cause your pot to take longer to reach a boil. Instead, add your salt just before you put in your ingredients. Lastly, let's talk about the lid. While it may seem like a good idea to keep the lid on to reach a boil faster, doing so can cause the water to boil over. Instead, leave the lid off or slightly ajar to allow steam to escape. Avoid these mistakes and you're on your way to boiling like a pro. Now that we've covered everything, let's quickly summarize what we've learned. Boiling may seem simple, but it's a science in itself. Understanding boiling is the first step. It's not just about heat and water, it's about knowing how the process affects different types of food and adjusting your technique accordingly. Choosing the right equipment is also essential. You want a pot that distributes heat evenly and a lid that fits snugly. Remember, not all pots are created equal. Likewise, don't forget about your stove. Gas, electric, and induction all interact with your cookware differently. Water quality matters. Tap, filtered, or bottled, each can affect the taste and texture of your food. Experiment to see what works best for you, and don't forget the importance of salting the water. It can make a world of difference. Timing is crucial. Overboiling can turn your vegetables mushy and your meats tough. Underboiling can leave you with raw centers and unappetizing textures. Get to know your produce and your proteins. They each have their own sweet spot. Food preparation is another key element. Size and shape can affect how evenly your food cooks. So chop carefully and consistently. Safety should always be your priority. Keep handles turned inward and use oven mitts. Hot water can cause serious burns, so always be cautious. Common mistakes? We've all made them. But now you know how to avoid them. Overfilling the pot, not using enough salt, disregarding timing. These are pitfalls you can now sidestep. Remember, practice makes perfect. Happy boiling.